I've been unpacking for the last, hour and a half or something. I mean, if you didn't catch the first part of today's show, I want you to go back I hope you'll go back and listen to the podcast. I hope you go to the Harump Society and read about it. I have been trying to summarize as best I can what OMB is, what NGOs are. Again, that's Office of Management and Budget, non-governmental organizations. Elon Musk this weekend is striking at the heart of these things. The waste, the fraud, the abuse, the money that is being sent out the door, your money and my money, that never, ever has to make the approval of Congress. And on a day like this, with this monumental movement happening, not to speak of the border, not to speak of it, I haven't even gotten to the Panama thing yet. There's so much going on. But I thought that this particular issue was important enough to bring in one of the very best voices. He's the immediate past chair of the House Freedom Caucus. He's a great friend of this show. He's just a warrior on Capitol Hill. If you don't know him, get to know him because we lean on him a lot. He's Congressman Scott Perry. And we are so grateful that he could make time. He represents the 10th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Congressman, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Well, it's great to be with you, Chris. Congratulations on everything new in your life.
Well, thank you very much. I hope we can continue to rely on you on this new show because I think the nation can benefit from hearing your voice sincerely. So thank you. Let me dive right into OMB. Again, I don't mean to talk to people like they're kids. I assume most in this audience are well aware of it. I felt it important to just kind of unpack it because I don't think most people even talk about it or know what it is and then what NGOs are. You know what I mean, Scott? But isn't this striking at the heart of the problem?
Oh, this is striking at the heart. And of course, OMB is loaded up. Russ Vought is there. He knows where the bodies are buried. He was there in the first term and, went to exile during the Biden years. But he's also brought in former Congressman Dan Bishop, who, they are taking a blowtorch to the fraud, waste, and abuse that, think about it, the Office of Management and Budget. So everything that we spend, personnel decisions, all that stuff goes through this office. And I can tell you, personnel is policy. They've got the right people there, and they're not wasting any time, from everything from individuals to, I got to say it because it's one of the things I've been working on for a few years, the divestiture of federal property all around the country. Buildings lying dormant, buildings with 10% occupancy that we pay for, all the heating, air conditioning, maintenance, nobody in them. And they're looking for all the change that's in the seat cushions and planning on returning it to the Treasury and planning on using it wisely to do things like deport people that are here illegally and make sure that our foreign policy fits our national strategy. Yeah, things like that. So it is awesome. Yeah.
You're pretty steely-eyed about this and pretty realistic. Elon Musk posted 3 days ago, reducing the federal deficit from $2 trillion to $1 trillion in fiscal year 2026 requires cutting an average of $4 billion a day in projected 2026 spending from now to September 30th. I don't totally understand the math on that, but he updated 2 days ago and said, I am cautiously optimistic that we will reach that $4 billion a day for fiscal year 2026 reduction, and we're going to do it this weekend. So he thinks he achieved that perhaps. I mean, we'll get an update, I'm sure, soon, but he thinks he found that much money this weekend. You think so, with the help of AI?
Well, the question really isn't that you can find it or not find it. The question is that if any of this is going to be enduring. Most members of Congress know where the money is. Let's face it, over the last 4 years, the Biden administration increased annual federal spending by trillions of dollars. The question is does Congress have the courage to go back, claw that money back, let the taxpayers keep it, and quit doling it out so that it's enduring over time? We have to get it now, and we're going to need it, throughout the future, because right now we're adding $1 trillion into our debt every 100 days. And so we're very happy about the things that the administration is doing, but the power of the purse still lies within the legislature, and we know where this money is. The question is will we go get it and make sure that A, we're not taking it from the American people, and B, that it's spent wisely over a long period of time. When you have non-governmental organizations taking our tax money and using it to advise and pay for the legal services of people that want to come to the country illegally, you got to wonder, like, how much extra money is floating around here, and why is that a problem for members of Congress to vote to end that practice? But yet those are problems. You can't get a consensus on that. It's certainly not bipartisan.
How critical is this, what Elon Musk finds, to your point? So it's kind of, there's a couple of parts to this. Elon finds it. The Trump administration communicates it to all of us so we understand it. And then, as you say, got to bring it home to roost with Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, and members of Congress to do something about it. So it's finding it, communicating it so everybody understands it, and then doing something about it, right? Three-legged stool?
So the difference here is really the communications aspect. Of course, like I said, members of Congress know where this money is. The administration knows where it is. But, in the past, it's just been seen and reported by mainstream media as business as usual in Washington. They're squabbling. They can't get agreement. Democrats against Republicans, conservatives against liberals, blah, 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 right? People's eyes glaze over and they just say Washington is a huge sucking chest wound of financial distress of my tax dollars. What's different now is that Elon Musk is quite honestly just putting that into layman's terms and then blasting it out all over Twitter or X, and people are seeing it in a way that they haven't had it presented to them.
Yes,
in
which
the past.
On that point, could I jump in on that point, Congressman, and ask you, am I right, because Elon's doing that, because guys like you and me are talking about this and I say layman for my sake. I've had to break this down for my sake to understand it and communicate it to the audience. Again, I assume this audience is far smarter, but I've written about this and talked about it so much because I want everybody to get it. Elon's helped with that, and does that not strike terror? My point is, your colleagues, so many of your colleagues and the bureaucrats and the people who make money off of these NGOs, this has to strike terror at the heart of so many of these people, because now the plebes, the common folk, the flyover country people are starting to learn what they're up to in real time for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And we saw it. The first example of this last December, when Washington was going to do what it always does right before Christmas. Everybody wants to get home, 1,500-page bill filled with a bunch of garbage. And look, Freedom Caucus members, as usual, were raising the alarm, screaming, shouting at the ocean. The Washington press corps couldn't be bothered. Nobody reports on it. NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, and MSNBC. They don't hear a word you're saying. A couple communications from Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and the next thing you know, the whole thing in less than 12 hours burns to the ground, and they got to start all over again. Meanwhile, those of us raising the alarm in Congress, time immemorial, we've been screaming about this since September, saying this is what's coming, this is what's going to happen, this is what you can expect, and of course nobody picks it up. But the difference that has been made is Elon and Vivek, because people are listening to them. They're not of Washington, D.C. They're not in Washington, D.C. They're seen as kind of transpartisan, right? They transcend partisanship, and people have a different respect level for them, because they don't think it has anything to do with Democrat or Republican. It just has to do with being efficient, like a business person would. And look, we're very gratified by that. We don't care who gets the credit. We're just trying to save the republic here.
Amen. Congressman Scott Perry, 10th District of Pennsylvania is what he represents, immediate past chair of the House Freedom Caucus. The Treasury Department has now given Elon and his team access to federal payment systems. And everybody on cable news this morning on the left is trying to pretend that Elon's up to no good. He's got access to our secret information or whatever. I mean, he's the richest man in the world. He doesn't need my Social Security number, to get at my 401k or whatever. I mean, that's not, so like, what's he doing? Can you just kind of break this down for us, bare bones? What's he looking at in Treasury?
Well, I think he's looking at, Treasury says we're out of money. There are things like, I don't know, we have dozens of national emergencies on the books from the 70s where there are accounts allegedly we can never get this information, that sit there with billions, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars in them. I think he's taking a look at all that stuff. I also think he's probably looking at the balance of payments between us and China and the fact that China has a special deal to operate within our financial markets that we don't have in China. And, he's probably going to say, why would anybody do that? Why would you work to help your competitor and not be on a level playing field? So, I think they're looking for every dime in the seat cushions, and they're not going to be told, we don't know where it is, or you can't have that information, or somehow it's proprietary. This is the American taxpayers' dollars. It's being doled out based on legislation decades in the past, and we want to know where it is and how it's being used, and if it's and why it's not being reported. Do you know, Chris, that not 1 cent has been recorded of the money spent for the COVID emergency, the pandemic, right? COVID-19. We don't have any of the receipts. How is it possible that those trillions of dollars were spent and we don't have any of the receipts? And is there any of it left? Like, who do you believe? And so I think that they want to shine some light on that, and I hope they do.
Congressman, just quickly, and you've been nice enough to hang around, so I'm going to come back and talk with you about some of this trade stuff and the tariffs coming up. But let me just ask you with 30 seconds left before I go to break here. This all is incumbent upon Congress ultimately to fix, though, right? I mean, Elon can find it and expose it, but to your point, Mike Johnson and the House have to act first to rein it in. True?
We have to act if it's going to be enduring. The president can take certain executive actions, but of course, it depends on who comes in 4 years. That could all be reversed immediately. And so if we want fixes, solutions to endure, that means Congress has to step up, get things through, and get them to the president for his signature. And that's what really needs to be happening. That's the difficult, hard work that should be bipartisan. But when you can't decide whether men should be, in women's locker rooms, it's hard to get to the bigger issues. And that's where we are in this country right now.
Scott Perry, again, represents the 10th Congressional District. When we return, and I'm grateful that he could make time for us today, I want to pick his brain about tariffs. Tomorrow, Trump is supposed to speak today to the leaders of both Mexico and Canada. Could those conversations today stave off what's supposed to come tomorrow, 25% tariffs on everything coming in from Mexico and Canada, also going after China, and a big deal struck over the weekend, courtesy of Marco Rubio, in Panama? All of that straight ahead with Congressman Scott Perry on the Chris Stigall Show. This is amazing. Back with Congressman Scott Perry, who represents the 10th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, and he's the immediate past chair of the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, on the international front, Trump talking about 25% tariffs with Canada and Mexico. Meanwhile, talking about the Panama Canal over the weekend, news that Panama has agreed to facilitate and offer free passage to U.S. Navy ships through the Panama Canal following a visit from Marco Rubio over the weekend, agrees to end China's Panama Canal deal and to leave from China's 2017 Belt and Road Initiative. Here again, in layman's terms, for those of us that aren't studied in the subject of the Panama Canal, what does this mean?
Oh, it's a huge development. Understand that even though the Panama Canal was built by the United States and sits astride the country of Panama, the Chinese Communist Party was running it. And of course, that's never a good thing to have your adversaries collecting information on you and really holding your future in the palm of their hands and your vitality. And that's exactly what's been going on for years and years at this point. And so I think what you're seeing is a realignment across the Western Hemisphere. The Communist Party of China is working in South America, Central America. They are the new colonialists. And of course, they seek the downfall of the United States of America. And in the past, both Republican and Democrat presidents have been willing to just say, we don't love that, but they're a competitor, so we have to let them do that. We have to put up with it. No. We don't have to put up with it. It's dangerous. It's expensive. And President Trump is the first guy to come in and say, well, obviously, we're not going to do that. Right. It'd be like you having to pay somebody to use your own driveway And the person you're paying decides some days, well, I don't want to let you drive your car home because I'm irritated with you, or I don't like you, or I just want to put pressure on you to do what I want you to do. No one would stand for that in their community, in their own life at home. Yet as a nation, we've been standing for it for decades. And this president has said, no, we're not doing it anymore. I think China's on notice, like their games are going to be over, at least for this next 4 years. And hopefully it's a more enduring as the American people become savvy to what the Communist Party of China has been doing in our own backyard.
Is this just inertia, Congressman? I mean, I don't have any respect or time for Democrats and Joe Biden and the like, but was it just laziness, inability, unwillingness, or a favorability toward China? Maybe that's worst case, that nobody did anything about this prior to Trump? I mean, it just seems obvious.
It is obvious, but I think there's another point to it, which people have a hard time accepting, acknowledging. There's a lot of money to be made in America by cozying up to the Communist Party of China. And there's a lot of Americans that they just think, well, America's always going to exist. But in the meantime, I can make millions of dollars dealing with communists. And in the past, that would be seen as unacceptable. No one would do it because they love their country more than they love making money. And but that's out the window now. And so there's a huge push in Washington, D.C. and financial markets around the country to just kind of overlook what China has in store for America. As long as we're making the money now, we'll let other people work it out later. President Trump has said, no, later is now. We're done with this, and it's not going to happen anymore.
Congressman Scott Perry,
yes. I think this is just the first of many actions against the Communist Party of China that we're going to see.
Let's talk about the tariffs with Mexico and Canada. Our friend Jim Paff at the Conservative Caucus, we have him on from time to time. He said, does anybody realize what Canada does anyone realize what Canada charges on tariffs for U.S. products already? Right. Milk, 270%, cheese, 245%, butter, 298%, and on it goes. To his point, to President Trump's point, we pay out the nose to send our stuff to them. They, not so much.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Again, American presidents, American administrations, Democrat and Republican, have just been willing to allow the United States to be abused by our friends to our north and south. And this president came in and took a look at it and said, well, hold on a second here. We make lumber, we make cheese, we make milk. Our dairy producers are going out of business. Our small herd farmers are going out of business. Our farms are being turned into housing developments because farming is no longer profitable. Meanwhile, we should pay Canada? Like, who would do that? Like, look, I guess Canada's got its problems, and we certainly respect that. But that doesn't mean the United States needs to go bankrupt so that they can take care of their issues. They should quit electing socialists up there and get to work. And so I think President Trump sees that rightly. Same thing with Mexico. Look, it's got its problems. We acknowledge that. Quit relying on drug cartels and the narco state. Quit relying on socialist policies and socialist leaders, and get up in the morning and go to work. Why don't we do that instead? And if you can't handle that, well, don't blame the United States of America for it.
Congressman, I've got about 10 seconds or so, but I want to ask you, do you think they come to the table? They say they're going to talk with Trump today. These tariffs go in place tomorrow. Could they buckle today? Do you anticipate that or no?
Oh, they're coming to the table one way or the other. It's just at what cost, right? The longer they wait, the more it costs. And but they're coming to the table because Canada's GDP is about the size of Rhode Island, and Mexico's about headed there. So while they're both our biggest trading partners, it's got to be good for America, too.
He is Congressman Scott Perry of the 10th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, one of the stars for we conservatives in Congress. Thank you, sir. Can't wait to have you back real soon.
Thank you. God bless you, Chris.